Most of the transcription services are really good until it comes to proper nouns, spellings of names, sometimes even places. You kind of always have to go back and check that stuff. Also, punctuation. I've noticed that Descript adds so many commas, and I just don't like a lot of commas in my subtitles. So I'll go in and remove almost all of them. And then a pro tip for you all regarding capitalization is I usually go all caps for my subtitles. So then you don't have to decide what to capitalize versus what not to. That's just something that I do, a little tip that saves me a little bit of time. And then as we said several times in our last episode, this AI feature is great when coupled with a human to check and ensure accuracy. You know, I'm always going back through my subtitles, checking, making sure everything looks good and is translating well to the audience.
Welcome to the Pod Circle podcast, where we bring practical tips and insights for every podcaster.
Whether you're just starting out or you're already a seasoned podcast pro, these conversations dive into all the topics that matter most to you. So welcome to part 2 of our series, all about the rise of AI and how it's changing the podcast and the content game in general. So last week we broke down 2 different products that are utilizing AI for recording and editing podcasts. And if you missed that episode, be sure to go back and listen. But today we're going to talk about AI features and assistance specifically to help you up your video game and accessibility for your listeners. So as a reminder, we post all of our shows on YouTube, so you can head over to Pod Circle's page there to subscribe and follow along with this episode and also catch up on some past episodes.
All right, so let's get into it. If you've been listening to the Pod Circle podcast for very long, you already know our stance on video. Our motto is ABR, always be recording. We believe that recording video, even if you don't currently have a video podcast, is one of the best ways that you can up your podcast game and leverage your content to its greatest use. So if you're not already recording, you're missing out. Start today. And especially if you're recording your interview remotely using a platform like our favorite Riverside or Squadcast, something like that will allow you to create social clips to YouTube clips and full video podcasts. There's just so much you can do with your video from your podcast. So video, as we continue to say, is definitely the future of content and certainly includes podcasts. So for more on this topic, we really encourage you to check out episode 11, Should I Start a Video Podcast? So let's talk about AI and video.
Yeah. So AI is making great strides, as you all probably already know, to help content creators produce quality videos with simplicity and ease. And it's nice because you no longer have to be a videographer to have great video. Yeah. There's so many great tools now. It's also just making strides in helping you better connect with your audience through accessibility. So here are 3 AI functions to consider utilizing. The first one is AI video captions. You guys have seen these. Captions are a huge deal. So subtitles on your video are no longer a quote unquote nice to have. They are now a necessity if you're putting out video for your consumers. A recent report from Verizon Media, they surveyed US consumers and found that 92% of people view videos with the sound off on their mobile devices.
Does that feel true for you, Kyle?
Not for me, but I think, and I wonder why that is. I could go, but I think if people are maybe scrolling at work, you got to have sound off. But I work for myself. I'm around my family all day, and we can have sound on without there being any, anyone noticing or whatever. But what do you think? Why do you think that is?
Oh, I definitely do it. I think I just kind of mindlessly scrolling, or even when I am around my kids or whatever, and they're doing something, I don't want to have added noise. I've got so much stimulus coming at me anyway. So unless I really care about it, I don't turn the sound on.
Oh, that's really interesting. That same report recommends that advertisers caption their advertisements because 80% of consumers are more likely to watch an entire video when captions are available. 37% of viewers watching captioned videos will turn the sound on because the captions spark their interest. That's interesting. There are several platforms on the market using AI to insert subtitles into your videos. The leader in the space is called Veed, V-E-E-D. A few other fan favorites are Captions, Captions.ai. And the one that we use is called Descript, which we talk a fair amount about here recently in the podcast. So Veed boasts 98% accuracy in their subtitles and closed captioning. And they offer manual review and edit tools to ensure accuracy. Most of these platforms automate subtitles fairly quickly and then offer you the ability to review and edit and then customize the look of your subtitles by choosing a style, setting your font, adding animations, all that good stuff. Here's what I'm always tweaking when I'm in Descript. I'm always tweaking name spelling and capitalization.
Yep.
So most of the transcription services are really good until it comes to the proper nouns, spellings of names, sometimes even places. If you mention a store or something, you kind of always have to go back and check that stuff. Also, punctuation. I've noticed that Descript adds so many commas, and I just don't like a lot of commas in my subtitles. So I'll go in and remove almost all of them. And then a pro tip for you all regarding capitalization is I usually go all caps for my subtitles. So then you don't have to decide what to capitalize versus what not to, all that good stuff. And so that's just something that I do, a little tip that saves me a little bit of time. And then as we said several times in our last episode, this AI feature is great when coupled with a human to check and ensure accuracy. I'm always going back through my subtitles, checking, make sure everything looks good and is translating well to the audience. So I think it's a great starting point.
It's a great starting point. It's a great time saver, being able to just quickly go in and spot check it. I think that's great. Okay, so the second tool or function that you might want to think about utilizing is AI video post-production. So we mentioned that with some of these AI tools available, you don't have to be a videographer to create quality video content. And many of the leaders in this space are offering remarkable and honestly kind of freaky AI features that help you post-production. And some of these include video trimming, AI knowing that you started a video before you actually started your content and knowing where that ends. So that saves you some time. Eye contact correction. This is the weird thing.
This is wild. Yeah.
So sometimes when we're doing these podcasts, I'm looking in this left-hand corner to read my notes. We could use AI and something like Veed. I think Veed, Captions, and maybe even Descript all have it where they can fix your eyes.
Descript does it as well. I haven't used it yet. I've seen it. I don't know if it's a beta feature, but it's a really new rollout. I'm curious to use it just to try it out. I'm curious to see
if it looks human or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's an option. Yeah. And then I think this is also interesting and I think would take some finessing, but they can also do lip dubbing. If you go and re-record something, let's say you messed up in the middle of it, you said the wrong name, but you had a really good take regardless, they can go in and insert that. And then through AI, we'll go in and correct the mouth movement, which is weird. And then removal of background noises, or if you shot in a background that you don't actually want in your video, they can use AI to remove the entire background, and color correction to make sure that videos match up and kind of match each other if you have two different angles. So again, there's a lot of really fun post-production things that you can explore and try out and test, but our caveats are you get what you pay for. Occasionally, they might look a little wonky, and the more you add to it or the larger changes that you make, the less human it might feel. And also, we said this in the last episode, these are consumer products. They're not professional products. So you're going to get a consumer grade result, and that's probably great. That's a great starting point. It saves you tons and tons of time. So I think realistically, when I think about AI in this season of where we're at, the people who are familiar with it are willing to lean in. It's going to save you time, and you're going to be on the forefront of being able to interact with these tools. And I really think it's a great starting point, but we have to have a human to go back and check at this point. So my wrap up on this is that Captions.ai and Veed and Descript are the leading in this space on features, but several other platforms are really coming for their market share and trying to bring these AI features as well.
We've talked a lot about Descript and Riverside. I think that people are looking for kind of an all-in-one recording, editing, post-production solution. And the two that we see doing that really well are Riverside, especially on the recording side of things, and then Descript on the post-production editing. And what we're currently using is Riverside to record our remote conversations and then dumping everything over into Descript. So yeah, that's just what's worked for us. And I think that, again, going to some of these third-party sites like Captions.ai, although I think that their captions look awesome, and I know a lot of people that use it.
It's just another thing.
Yeah, it's another thing. And so, but if it's really whatever works for you and works for the consumer.
The third feature I want to talk about is transcriptions. So AI audio and video transcription has come leaps and bounds in recent years. We used to have to pay $1 per minute for social video captions and transcriptions when I was a little baby social media marketer.
Were you using rev.com?
Yes, we were. Yeah. How you know?
Oh, it was the only game in town for a long time.
For a long time. And it was kind of in the forefront of this when you actually needed captions. People weren't using captions from an accessibility standpoint or just from a user habit and the way people interacted with videos. We all watched some full-fledged. They were shorter. We didn't need captions. But now that we do, and there's really moved that, you'll see a lot of different programs and companies have come into the space to simplify this. So now for one monthly fee, you can transcribe almost all the content you want. I've used a few different programs in the past, Otter.ai most often, simply because it's the one that I started and I have, a premium account on it. And I transcribe every single episode I do. If you're looking to keep all your products under one service, the other options we've mentioned all have this capability as well to do pre and post video editing and transcriptions all in one, as you were just saying. So a text transcription of your videos and podcasts are particularly helpful for SEO and accessibility to include a transcript in your show notes or to take that transcript and make it into a blog or use it for clipped up posts or LinkedIn or all the other things. So it's great to have that full transcription of your video podcast.
You know what I just did yesterday? I went back and I'm going back through a lot of our episodes and adding the transcriptions to Transistor, which hosts our podcast. That's kind of our landing page for our podcast. And I'm going in and adding transcriptions. Now they also, as you're about to get to here in a second, Transistor is about to roll out their own transcription. So I'm curious to see, I'm going to kind of A/B test the two and see which one's more accurate. Because again, when you get into name spellings, even like Descript, when we say, welcome to the Pod Circle podcast, it turns Pod Circle into two different Pod Circle into two different words. And for SEO purposes, I want that to be right. So I'll go through and I'll do a word search within Descript and then do like a find and replace type thing. So it all, and even your name, Mackenzie.
I bet.
So it's stuff like that. I'm curious to see how Transistor does when they roll that out. But
I'm curious to see when you go in and change it. Let's say like Mackenzie, for example.
Yep.
I know that on Word, I can say, hey, this is always correct. So it doesn't try to correct it. I wonder if Transistor or other platforms will start to learn the changes that you make on a consistent basis.
Yeah. I don't know that I've seen anything to that end in Descript. But one thing I do is add speaker labels. So each time one of us speaks, it says, Kyle Cummings, and then I speak, and there's a timestamp. And having, I think, our names in there so often, just from an SEO standpoint, is really valuable. And so I'm no expert in SEO. I wouldn't pretend to be, but I know that keywords are very important. Google is still a very, very powerful search engine.
Yes.
Obviously YouTube as well. So making sure that those transcriptions are available just adds more of those keywords to your site. Anyways, that kind of jumped in all over your point and got ahead of you a little bit, but.
No, I love it. Well, what you were saying is podcast platforms are moving to include transcriptions right in your episode player. And so this spring, Apple is introducing transcripts on all Apple podcasts, making it easier for anyone to access podcasts and be able to read along while they're listening to it. So it's an accessibility play from Apple. But according to Apple, with transcripts, your audience can read the full text of an episode, search the episode for specific words or phrases, and tap the text to play from that point in the episode. So I think it'll be great. And as the episode plays, each word's highlighted, making it easier to follow along. Transcripts are also easily accessible from the episode details page. So you can just touch and hold, and it'll reveal your transcript. But here are the things that I think are the caveats in here. You cannot edit Apple's AI-generated transcripts. So if you have things that you're consistently changing, you're going to want to use a third party to create your own transcription that you can go in and edit and then upload it. Apple is going to allow you to upload it through your hosting platform like Transistor. And then, like you mentioned, Transistor is adding a add-on easy feature to do this right in when you upload.
Yeah, another AI feature.
Another AI feature they're using right in the platform that I think will be easier. And it's fairly affordable. So I think if you're not already using one of these other services and paying a fee for it, if you're using the free version or you just haven't tapped into some of these AI video features, it would be great to rely on Transistor. I saw their pricing yesterday and I was like, oh, that's actually not bad per episode.
Yeah, not at all. I was a little surprised that they put that feature behind a paywall. I'm not really aware of any other add-on features that they have, but hey, if it's powerful and it's good and the transcriptions are great, especially if you can go in and edit them to any degree, I wouldn't bat an eye at paying $5 or $10 a month by having that as an option.
Totally. And I think it'll be helpful for your consumers and how people, as we're seeing, how people are starting to consume media. They're reading it along with listening to it, or
I was just noticing that yesterday when I was adding, because I was just copying and pasting the transcript over from Descript over into Transistor. And then I saw it. So on Transistor, on our landing page, you can view the show notes or you can view the transcription. It's like, there's like a 2-part to the page. And once I went over there, it found the timestamps and I saw that they were clickable. I had no idea that was that. I mean, it makes sense because you can do that in the show notes. Like it makes the timestamps clickable and you can skip around. But I noticed that the same thing was the case for transcriptions. Like, oh, that's really valuable. Because I think for a long time, podcasters have said like, oh yeah, you should add transcriptions. And I think a lot of us have wondered like, well, why? Like other than just like maybe an accessibility SEO thing, what's the other use case that would validate needing to use transcriptions? And I think I found one yesterday. And maybe you've known about this for a while and other people have been using it that way. But I haven't. And now I'm like, oh, that might change the way that I interact with a podcast especially if I just find it online via Google search or, some other way.
And you just want to skip to a specific section. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think those are really interesting tools for you to keep your eyes on and be conscious of for marketing and content purposes moving forward. AI is the future, but as we've been saying, it's not the end all be all for now.
And we've just scratched the surface too. I mean, transparently, we cut this episode down and we cut some things out like AI avatars, AI voice clone. There's a lot going on, but we want to keep it super simple and super practical just for the everyday podcaster and give you kind of the stuff that's the most relevant to you. So all of that is stuff to keep your eye on, dig into it. Again, I use Descript to edit this podcast and make clips and things like that. It's something that I've been personally doing because I see the value in it. And I think Descript is becoming a really, really popular platform for, I would say like consumer/prosumer podcasts and even like post-production agencies and stuff like ours. I want to learn it really well. One, because I would love to record some course content around it and teach other kind of do-it-yourselfers how to use it. And also because I want to be able to train our editors on how to use it for its benefit. Again, it's not a one-size-fits-all package for us yet. I still use a couple of different programs to supplement Descript's deficiencies, like Pro Tools. I still process my audio over there. I still think it's a really powerful platform. And I would love to train our other editors on how to use it when it's a good fit for the client, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Well, that's it for this one. Thanks for tuning in on this episode. If you're looking to partner with an expert podcast team like PodCircle, help you produce a quality show, that's exactly what we do over here. So PodCircle creates premium podcasts for busy professionals. So if that's you, if that sounds like that's something up your alley, whether you're a coach, author, speaker, entrepreneur, solopreneur, get in touch. You can schedule a call with me using the link in the show notes, or you can just simply drop me an email at kyle@podcircle.com. That's KYLE@podcircle.com.
And if you're just getting started and want to launch your show with ease, you can get our complete podcast starter kit at podcircle.com/start. And we want to make sure that you are subscribed to the show where you listen. So whether that's Spotify, Apple, or if you're joining us on YouTube where we put full episodes in the video format, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. If you are watching on YouTube, how are you using AI for your podcast? What tools or features should we have talked about that we didn't? So we'll see you in the comments.